Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, folks. So, I just wanted to go over page 4 of the new Earth Science Reference Table or the new Earth and Space Science Reference Table. This is the star chart or the HR diagram. And basically, this chart depicts the characteristics or the life cycle of stars, right? It also includes the brightness, the mass, the temperatures, and the associated colors. Okay, so for example, we have the stages. We have the stages of the stars. So for example, you have your main sequence stars, right? And your main sequence stars are basically your average stars that essentially have a fairly long life and eventually transition into the next stages. Okay, so your main sequence stars are going to pretty much be um, along this grouping right here, right? Now, our sun is considered is a main sequence star, Alpha Centauri, Alpha Centauri A, Alpha Centauri B, uh, Sirius, Vega. Okay, these are your examples of your main sequence stars. Then you have your giants. Okay, then you have your giants, and they include stars like Pollux or Aldebaran. Then you have your super giants, right? So these are your largest stars, right? And they include stars like Rigel, Deneb, and Betelgeuse. Yes, Betelgeuse. And then down here you have your white dwarfs. Okay. So your white dwarfs examples like Sirius B and Procyon B. Okay. Now, if you look on the uh, right hand y-axis, you have what they call increasing mass. Okay. So essentially, at the bottom, you're going to have your smaller stars. Okay. At the bottom, you're going to have your smaller stars. And then towards the top, you're going to have your largest stars, right? So it's small as you go up, okay? The masses of the star or the size of the star is going to increase. And it corresponds, right? You have your white dwarfs. Your white dwarfs are on the smaller end, right? So they're on the smaller end. Whereas you have your super giants, they're on the larger end. At the same time, on the y-axis on the left-hand side, you have the luminosity, right? So luminosity refers to the brightness. Okay, so it refers to the brightness of the stars. Okay, and it's labeled as solar units. So for example, our sun, okay, our sun is it's kind of like our standard, if you will. So it has a brightness of 1, right? A brightness of 1. So if you go across, right, it has a brightness of 1. Anything below that, right? Anything below that, the stars are dimmer. Okay, so they're dimmer, they're not as bright. Whereas above 1, the stars are brighter. Okay, and there's a relationship. The smaller the stars, okay, the dimmer the stars. Whereas the larger the stars, the brighter the stars. Okay, and you can see that if you read across, brighter stars tend to be larger. So you have your, again, your supergiants and your giants. Your dimmer stars would be your, for example, here, your white dwarfs. Okay, now another aspect is the temperature and the brightness. Now, typically, when you read a graph from left to right, okay, when you read a graph from left to right, normally the numbers are increasing from left to right. But in this example, the temperatures are decreasing from left to right. All right. So, for example, you have 30,000 degrees Kelvin on the left hand portion of this x axis, if you will. And then you have 3 degrees Kelvin as you move towards the right, right? So the stars are cooler. So essentially, you're going to have warmer stars, okay, warmer stars, okay, on the left hand side of the table, okay. Then as you get towards the middle, the temperatures are going to be relatively moderate, right? Going from 10 degrees, I'm sorry, 10,000 degrees Kelvin to 6,000 degrees Kelvin. Then when we get to this end right here, the temperatures are cooler. Okay, the star temperatures are cooler. Now, another feature is the color, right? So the warmer stars, the hotter stars are in blue. Okay, or they're blue. They have a blue color. All right. Um, our star or our sun, right, is in that yellowish orange range. And then the cooler stars are red in color. Within here, you also have the class of stars, and they go by O, B, A, F, G, K, M. Okay, so for example, let's see. So the sun would be in the class of somewhere between like an F and a G. Okay, so essentially, this is how you read the graph, right? It's essentially it's an X versus Y graph, right? You're looking at relationships between the x-axis and the y-axis. So temperature versus luminosity, temperature versus size, and also you can read across looking at the relationship between the brightness and size of stars. Okay, and yeah, if you understand how to read this graph, then you should be able to answer questions by using this page of the reference table. Okay, I hope this was helpful, and I will see you in the next one.